This is the Friday Rugby Preview on Borders Rugby Radio with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to our brand new Friday Rugby Preview programme, taking a look at tomorrow's games in the Borders. I'm Stuart Cameron, and with me today is Dale Clancy, who'll be casting his eye over the fixtures and giving us his informed opinions. We'll also be hearing from the clubs ahead of their games, but let's start with you, Dale. And it's the official start of the club season tomorrow, but after 3 rounds of Kings of the Sevens and Super Six as well, now into round 3 or round 4, in fact, it feels as if we've already got ourselves bedded in.
Yeah, I think it's always quite indifferent in the Borders when the season, it just seems like a few weeks ago we were watching Jed Sevens, and then now we're straight back into it. We've had 3 tournaments and the 15s is ready to get going again, and it's just lined up to be another interesting season. There's a lot to talk about, there's a lot of restructuring and reshuffling, and it's going to be interesting to see how the teams all fare this season. But it's nice that we've not got any chat about COVID or nothing like that so far this year. There's been a few player movements, a few coaching positions as well being taken up, so it's going to be an interesting season.
Now, you've been commentating on Super 6 games, so let's commence with what's going on there. It wasn't a great start for Southern Knights, losing their first couple of games at home to Watsonians and Boroughmuir Bears, but they picked things up last week with a win over Stirling Wolves, so they've got points in the bank. Yeah,
and I think that was an impressive victory for the Knights because they had 2 home games, they got defeated in both, and they were playing a team who also had 2 home games and got defeated in both. And I think Southern Knights perhaps have not really hit the ground running after the sprint series, but it was a really polished performance. They controlled the game, I thought, from start to finish. Stirling Wolves were pretty poor in terms of they had a lot of unforced errors, but I think that came a lot from the Southern Knights' dominance in defence. They were really, really compact in defence. They moved as a unit. They were dominant in the tackle as well, and they took their opportunities really well. And I think their big players did shine out. I thought Douglas Crawford at scrum half was really, really good, and Cameron Scott at 10 as well. They linked very well, and it brought out the best of Robbie Chalmers. I think he's a player that needs games, and that was his best performance I've seen him in any colour of rugby shirt. I said it on the coverage as well, but it was a really, really good performance from him.
New faces and injuries in the Knights camp, a combination of the two. And of course last weekend, dislocated knee for Harry Borthwick, concussion for Aidan Cross, and I think also Paddy Anderson got a head knock as well. So all 3 obviously missing out for the match at Boroughmuir. Yeah,
and I think they're 3 crucial players, you would say now. Even Aidan Cross, he was really, really good in the Nat 1 campaign last season. He's got his chance at Super 6 and he's been performing really, really well. Done well through the sprint campaign. Harry Borthwick is perhaps their standout player. He's almost like their linchpin. They did actually. I said to Harry, he's actually at Borders College, but I said to him that they actually performed better when he went off. But he's a big ball carrier, very skillful player, and he's going to be a big miss. And Paddy Anderson defensively, I thought when he went off, they could have came unstuck, but it does give opportunities to the likes of Ben Pickles to come in and maybe cement his place. So hopefully, Bruce Ruthven is wanting this team to develop. He said before the game last week he sees it developing, and it's going to take time. But it's only going to take time if you've got that squad depth, and it gives them a chance for these players to come through and put in a performance.
OK, well, let's hear from Bruce Ruthven, head coach of Southern Knights, ahead of tomorrow's match at Meggetland.
Looking at last weekend, the guys who are injured, we have Harry Borthwick's out with a dislocated knee. Paddy Anderson, Aidan Cross both picked up head knocks, so will be out for a minimum of 1 week. Incoming players for this week are Ollie Melville and Owen Harrison, who come up from the northeast, from Durham and Newcastle Uni respectively. And also we have Mike Bod comes into the squad and will also make his debut this weekend at tight head prop. We're really looking forward to going up to Boroughmuir on Saturday again. We've played Boroughmuir 3 times now. We've not managed to get the result, but we feel as if we have a bit of momentum coming to last week. The boys again have been training really well consistently for the last 3 or 4 weeks now, and we're looking to go up there and get the win. It's something that's been coming for a little while, just to get a run of good performances, and something that, if we play well, we talked about the consistency and accuracy in our game, which is getting better. week on, week out. So hopefully we can take, as I say, that momentum into this week's game and get a win.
So that's head coach Bruce Ruthven. One of the 2 try scorers last week was Douglas Crawford. He's a quality scrum half, a very exciting player to have on your team. And this is what he said after the match when I spoke to him.
Great to get off the mark up at Stirling. We knew they were going to bring a lot as well, because they needed a win. The Wolves needed a win too. So great for us to get a win, and it totally changes things. We got up to Barrowmuir now with a bit more confidence and that belief that we can win games, and we've shown we can, and in some fashion as well, because we played some great stuff.
And a try for yourself?
Yeah, it's nice to get on the board. First one I scored in a while. Wasn't how they usually come, a bit of a pick and go, but stuck my way through there. So yeah, always nice to score a try.
But we can't underestimate what that result means to the club.
Oh, 100%. It was really important for us to get a win. We talked about just trusting the process and really backing ourselves and doing what we do well. And things finally just clicked, so to get the win was massive for us.
Douglas Crawford, and he'll be looking forward to causing a bit of havoc at Meggetland tomorrow. That one kicks off at 2 o'clock. We'll have Mickey Yonota covering that game for us during our Borders Rugby special programme, which runs from 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock, live from Mansfield Park with full commentary on Hawick versus Selkirk. It's a Premiership match. It's also a Border League double header, and of course also the McLaren Shield is up for grabs as well. We'll be talking about that match in a second, but let's hear from the 2 head coaches, Selkirk's Scott White, and first of all Matty Douglas, who is once again this season in charge.
Look, it's great to have Premiership rugby back on Saturday. I know the players are looking forward to it, and as a coaching team, the hard work over pre-season is done, and it's now back into league action. So we've had a good pre-season, winning Hawick Sevens, and also a good hit out at Tyndale last week where we drew 14-all, which we were able to take a lot of positives for the game. And then Tuesday night, kind of focus shifted to Selkirk at Mansfield on Saturday, which is going to be a huge game. Border derby to start with, to open the league, and that's what you want as a player. You want to be playing in these games, and I know Scott will have Selkirk ready to go, and they'll be coming over to get the win. So we're going to have to be at the top of our game, and we're going to have a good mindset on Saturday. I think we're in a great place after the season we had, but different mindset going into the opening day compared to last year. The players know what they want to achieve this year, and we've set targets early, so it's crucial that we hit the ground running and put in a good performance. Kind of looking at team selection, we've rewarded a few boys through pre-season, and also great to see some returning faces to the club. Great to have Dalton Redpath back in the middle row after a stint at Super 6, so I know he's keen to get that green jersey back on, and rewarding Robbie Linton in the middle row for a good pre-season he's had, and also welcome Jay, his brother, back at 8. So after a bad injury last November, he's made a full recovery, so he gives us a bit go forward. And also rewarding Hector Patterson for a solid pre-season, just 17 years old and in the Scotland under-18 setup, but he's really showed a good skill set, and we're giving him a crack on Saturday. And also just looking at a few things in the back line, giving Kyle Brunton a run at 10. He's really impressed through pre-season, and bringing Kirk into 12. So we've got an exciting back line there as well. So it's going to be a physical game, but it's one we're looking forward to, and hopefully we're on the right end of the result come 5 o'clock.
Look, it's been an eventful pre-season, a few new faces coming in. Pre-seasons went well. We've been up at Ayr and we've had a couple of Sevens tournaments, so we're in a good place. You couldn't ask for a harder place to start, so we'll get a very good indication of where we stand as a squad after Saturday. But boys have trained well this week, and we're hugely looking forward to competitive rugby being back. We didn't get the rub of the green as you would like last year with all those injuries and stuff. So we're hoping to have a great season down at Philip Hawke, and Saturday's the start of it, and can't wait.
Scott White, head of coach of Selkirk, who made some great signings during the closed season, but plagued again with an injury-hit squad. Ewan McQuillan, James Head not taking part in the game tomorrow. And to be frank, Hawick will be pretty pleased that they won't be on the park tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they were 2 really good signings, or they were kind of, marquee signings, if you will. James Head coming with a lot of experience from Melrose, and Ewan McQuillan's been, here, there and everywhere in terms of amateur, semi-pro and professional rugby. He's got a very good CV, and he would have helped shore up that scrum as well, and really take it to that Hawick side. So they will be very relieved that there's 2 players that aren't going to be at the match in game day. But both teams are going into this with completely different objectives this season. You hear Scott White saying there about they were unlucky last year with injuries. Now that doesn't continue into this season. You know, if the form and the results don't go the right way, then there's something else that's perhaps wrong there. And I hope that Celtic's a great club, and I really hope that they can hit the ground running. It should be a great opening fixture for a border derby down at Mansfield Park, but Hawick will be looking to try and go one better this year as well and pick up that Premiership trophy, especially with the likes of Dalton Redpath back at Mansfield Park.
And it's a different kind of pressure really for Matty this time, because last year he was given the keys to Mansfield Park and said, right, get on with it, but he came through with flying colours. Hawick went through the whole season unbeaten at home, and that's something which he'll be trying to do again this year.
Yeah, I think they've got to then push on to that next step. Like, you know, obviously the club captain this year, Matty Carrier, have a lot of conversations with him about, you know, how he stayed at Mansfield Park, and that is a burning desire down there, is to get that Premiership trophy back at Mansfield Park, and Hawick will be really trying really hard to get it back there. And credit to Matty Douglas, you know, he's a young coach coming in, a lot younger than when some people say young coaches, like when Finlay Gillis took up the Heriots job. Like, he was 30 odd. You know, Matty Douglas is a young coach, and he's went down. He's probably been lucky that there's a hunger for rugby in Hawick, so he's been able to inherit this squad, take it forward. But now you can hear him there. He's putting his little stamp on it. He's starting to tweak things, putting Kirk Ford to 12, giving Kyle Brunton a run at 10, who's a really talented player who's perhaps not, you know, been allowed to flourish with the pressures that perhaps come with being a 10 at Mansfield Park. So, you know, he's now starting to put his management and his coaching style on it, which is refreshing to see, because, you know, he could have a really successful career as a coach in rugby, be it at Mansfield Park or higher up the ladder.
It's all changed really at Hawick, isn't it? Graham Hogg coming in as backs coach. We've got Lewis Bertram looking after the forwards, and John Hogg, Stuart and Graham's dad, of course, director of rugby. Yeah,
I think perhaps the additions of Graham and Lewis are quite nice. I think they're the moves that they'll really probably reflect Matty Douglas and allow him to flourish, because he can put it into two trusted, experienced coaching staff. Like, Lewis Bertram has been made to work hard with probably a limited squad at Peebles because of the injuries, you know, perhaps a difference in rugby culture as well. You know, and he takes a lot of experience from Gala. And Graham Hogg, you know, he's played at international level, sevens, he's been at Hawick, he's a Hawick guy, he's loving being back there, and the stamp that he puts on the youth section as well. You know, you've got that good culture there, and I think all good teams, all good squads, they thrive on that culture that's there. And I think Matty Douglas has got a really good coaching set up, and, you know, John Hogg there just to assist and keep his laddie right as well.
And of course, Gary Douglas Rummel was involved last year as director of rugby. He stepped down from that position because of work duties, but he's got a little bit of extra time now, and he's back in rugby, and he's replacing Graham Hogg effectively in the youth development at Hawick Youth. Yeah,
I think it's good that Hawick, you know, they do have such a good rugby culture. I've said it ever since I took up commentary and started doing stuff on various platforms. The rugby culture and the brotherhood that they've got at Hawick is something to be admired, and it's perhaps taken a little bit of time to come back again because of them not being as successful with the rise of Melrose, the club team, when they had a kind of stranglehold on the borders for a long time. Selkirk had a little sniff of it as well, and it's taken a while for Hawick to really find their feet again. Super 6 has probably been the best thing that's ever happened to Hawick Rugby Club in the last decade, because it's allowed them to get back at the top table of amateur rugby, which is a position that they love to dine at. So it's been refreshing, and it's nice to see these Hawick threads continuing to feed through the club. A lot of clubs don't have that. They've got to rely on people to come from elsewhere, be it in the borders or be it Scotland, but Hawick seem to be able to breed their own.
What about Selkirk then under Scott White? Loads and loads of injuries last year, and this year, it's not really started that well for them either.
I think he's working them too hard. It's it's a difficult one, because I've said for the last 2 or 3 years that Selkirk have had a very, very promising squad. They've got a lot of good players there that on their day are a match for anybody. A couple of injuries and they look really, really weak, and you can see the depth that they perhaps don't have. It's a similar case with Jed. Perhaps 5 years ago they had one of the best starting 15s in amateur rugby, but a couple of injuries, the threads start getting unpicked. And I think coaching wise going into this year, if Selkirk don't get the results, be it injuries or just being unlucky, there will be questions asked. And I think in terms of Scott White, he's a really intelligent rugby guy. He comes with a lot of experience, and this will be a nice challenge for him. He'll absolutely thrive on this, is to try and get the best out of this squad and nurture the players like Savannah McComb to really lead these players forward. One of the co-captains this year, him and Luke Petty, will be tasked with trying to drive this young, ambitious club back up towards the top, the upper ends of the table, and there's no better game to do it than against Hawick, down away from home, because it was a cracker last year as well, a really close match between the two teams. And, Selkirk will go in probably as underdogs, but they'll certainly be up for the fight.
Because you mentioned the closeness of it all. I mean, I think it was one last kick by Kirk Ford that got them over the line, 23-22. Before that, there was a draw, wasn't there? 22-all or something. So always close down there. So it's going to make for an interesting game. And Robin Purdy and Andrew Fleming will be our commentary team for that one, live on Borders Rugby Special on Borders Rugby Radio with TV highlights on Sunday. Well, also in the Premiership, Jed Forest have a difficult trip to Curry, who finished top of the pile after the regulation 18 games before losing to Mar in the final. Coming away from Millennium Park with anything is hard to do, but I guess if you're going to get them, the first game of the season is the time where they could be vulnerable. Jed, of course, have beaten Consett 95-0 despite not completing the whole game in pre-season. They also won at Morpeth, so on paper that's a good return for them, and the club decided to skip over the Hawick and Gala Sevens tournaments to put everything into their preparation for the 15s season. Some people have been surprised with that decision. Others have said that's exactly what they have to do because Premiership is the bread and butter. What's your own take on that?
It's a difficult one. I think that we've chopped and changed the calendar over the last few years. I think Jed, in my own opinion, Jed probably should concentrate on the sevens as well as the 15s. It's fitness. They've got experienced players there. It's a double-edged sword because those experienced players then need to lead this young squad and make sure, likes of the Youngs, Gary Munro, Don Buckley, those players that have been in sevens jerseys for the last few years, you take them out of that 15, it's you don't get those combinations and connections. It's just disappointing, and it's not on Jed's point. It's just the fact that the rugby calendar's so congested with fixtures and friendlies, and it's directed in the fact that we've got national rugby, and It's just disappointing that the Kings of the Sevens couldn't make it, and it's not their fault. It's just the fact that they've got to make a decision, and this decision's made by volunteers. These people aren't getting paid. They're just trying to put the best interests of their club at heart, and I don't think that, my personal opinion, over the next couple of years, I don't think Jed Forest will be a Premiership club, but they'll do everything to try and stay there, and if that's their ambition and that's their target as a club, you've got to respect that, and you've got to say, look, we know it's a busy time, but we respect your decision there, but it just then, they're in a very fortunate position with their sevens, so, a lot of teams do go and support their sevens, and it would have to be a monumental effort for teams not to. It's just, they've been put in a difficult position, but I personally think that, they perhaps could have shown up at the sevens with squads.
Well, earlier this morning, I caught up with head coach Andrew Brown, who's taken over from Scott Tomlinson. Now, of course, the decision was made to pull out of the Hawick and Gala Sevens tournaments. What was the reasoning behind that? Because obviously you are focusing on the 15s.
Yeah, purely just because of the focus on the 15s. Obviously, the new coaching team coming in, we wanted to focus on the 15s and have as big a squad as possible to do that. You
did beat Consett quite comfortably, nearly 100 points, in fact, and also Morpeth. How did you assess those two games?
Yeah, the Consett game was probably a little disappointing, but the lads stuck to the structure, which was a good thing. Once you start scoring a lot of points, then it's quite easy to go off script and just play a bit ad hoc. So sticking to the structure was good to see. The new lads came in and have fit in really well. Matthew's a lad from Cumbria, and I've known him for quite a while, so he's a big guy. It is only going to be beneficial to the club. The Morpeth game we got quite a lot from the Morpeth game, to be honest. They were a big, strong pack and quite physical boys, so it was a good test.
Now, you mentioned big boys. It's very rare to have them at Jed, so obviously bringing a little bit of bulk in the pack is going to be a big thing, and it's good to see Paulo Ferreira still involved.
Yeah, Big P is good. He's great to have around the club. All the lads think very highly of him, and his contribution is massive.
What about the other people who've come in this time?
Lewis Walker, the young Aussie lad. He's a breath of fresh air, just coming in. He's got all the talent and likes to be able to use it.
And we had a glimpse of him last season, of course, and towards the sevens as well. He's certainly some player, very much in the mould of the young twins.
Yeah, well, obviously I don't really I don't have a lot of experience with the young twins, but looking forward to getting that partnership together on the field.
Absolutely, and of course you can confirm that although the boys have been playing a little bit of football, they're very much Jed Forest players, and they will be playing a part later on in the season.
absolutely.
So tell us about the team then for Curry, because it's a formidable task. Anyone playing away at Curry at the best of times, it's going to be a challenge. But getting them on the first day of the season might work in your favour.
That's the task that's in front of us. To be honest, we're going to Curry, and the way I see it is the pressure's on them. They're going to be the ones that are under the spotlight to perform at home, first game of the season, and that's the challenge that's in front of us.
A change of style in management as well, which always happens when a new coaching team comes in. How have the players bought into your style of coaching?
I think that the boys are buying into it. That there's a good vibe around the training. There's a good vibe around the camp. That the lads enjoy training. We're getting good numbers down. And when we play our games, we're sticking to the structure that's in place. So it must be getting in there somehow. And
of course, you're working with Mark Lee as well, a former Jed Forest player. How's that working out?
Yeah, Mark's just a great guy, and his knowledge is so valuable. Just his presence, it's helpful.
And a new captain as well, in Clark Skeldon, a man with plenty of experience of being round Jed.
Yeah, Skelly's great. Obviously, he has the respect to the boys, and he's a good rugby player. He's really active and he's really busy. He's a clever rugby player.
Now, of course, the first day of the season can always bring up loads and loads of surprises, and it's not really, I suppose, till the third or the fourth game of the season that it's a bit. I always describe it as like the 4x400 metres relay. The stagger doesn't really unwind until you get 4 or 5 games into it. I guess that will be the same for you. I mean, everybody, it's like a clean sheet to start, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the unknown for me, so. Obviously the players have been in the Premiership for a few years now, but for me it's the unknown, and I go into these games with no preconceptions. We just focus on ourselves because we can't affect what the other team do.
Well, look, we wish you all the best for the Curry game. We'll be there, obviously covering it, and we look forward to a good performance from Jed, and of course a great season. And no doubt we'll be talking to you. In fact, covering the Jed match against Hawick next week. So we'll catch up with you then.
Thank you, Stuart.
Andrew Brown and Graham McGregor will be making his way to cover that game for us tomorrow. Other games in the Premiership: Edinburgh Accies v GHA, Glasgow Hawks against Heriots, and Mar against Musselburgh. And at the moment, these are names on paper. We all know what they've done in the past, but of course we don't really get a true reflection of how the Premiership's going to go until probably about 3 or 4 games in.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's by the time last year Curry went down to Hawick and got beat on the opening day of the season, and we thought it was Hawick's to kind of lose after that, and Mar ended up victorious, and Curry went on this massive undefeated streak home and away after that, and it's difficult to judge because players keep cropping through the amateur system. You would look at Mar and think that they'd be strong again. They've not lost too many players to the Super Six, and the ones that they lost during the sprint, a lot of them have went back. Shedden perhaps is certainly still at Bulls, and he's a threat, so they'll lose him. But they've got the Bickerstaff still there as well. Edinburgh Accies have recruited, got Tom Drennan back, so these teams have strengthened over the summer, and they'll all want a tilt. It's a level playing field again, and they'll all want a crack at the crown.
Well, I mentioned the Premiership game between Hawick and Selkirk. It's doubling as a Border League Pool A game. But at the Geights, it's a Pool B encounter between your old team, Peebles, and last year's finalist, Kelso. Well, Peebles are the great K7 so far, scoring in all 3 tournaments, making the final last week at Gala. And apart from their own tournaments, which, of course, Dale Clancy won on a very rare occasion there, captaining Peebles to victory at a K7's meeting. The only other team that they'd actually appeared in a final on the K7 circuit was in 2002 when they lost to Jed Forest at the Hawick Sevens. Let's start with Kelso. We spoke with Neil Hinnigan, Kelso's Director of Rugby, ahead of this one.
We've prepared fairly well, and we had a good run out last week against Heriots up there. We got a win, but it'll be probably a tougher ask this week. Go to the Guides. We know they're going to be well up for it under Ian Chisholm being there now. He's breathed new life into them, and they were a bit unlucky last year with injuries and so forth. I think realistically Peebles are definitely a top 4 National 2 team, probably a team in waiting for National 1 again. It's never easy at the Guides. Kelso haven't got a great recent history at the Guides, not won many times up there, so we're going to have to be switched on and just get into our systems as quick as we can. Being as early as in pre-season as it is, we need to get that settled side and try and play a bit. We've got a little bit sort of movement in the back row. For last week we've lost 2 or 3 players through different things, so there's a bit of a youthful outlook in the forwards, and that's good. It's good for progression for them. They'll learn a lot, go to Peebles to play against a border team, a border derby. They're the things you learn the most in down this way, is playing in their games. So we obviously done well in the Border League last year. We just narrowly lost out in the final to Hawick, and we took a lot of pride in what we were doing in the Border League last year. It was a respect thing. We wanted to get back from the rest of the borders and the rest of Scottish Rugby. Kelso had to target the Border League to gain that, was to beat teams around us. And I think listening to Chegg's interview last week, their Peebles are now looking to do that. They want to stamp their mark on other border rivals and get that respect back. And you know, we're fully expecting that to be a bit of a battle royal come Saturday, and really good preparation for our National 1 game against Aberdeen the week after. If you can get a border derby in pre-season, that just gets the rough edge back into everyone. And there's never at this stage of the season, it's supposed to be sort of friendlies, but there is no friendlies in a border derby. So yeah, one we're looking forward to. We'll see how we get on.
Neil taking a cautious approach there as ever, but they'll start as favourites, being the higher ranked team. Now, Ian Chisholm has taken over at Peebles. Already his influence is being felt in Sevens, and let's hear from him now. I spoke with him after their success at the Gala Sevens tournament.
At the start of the season, we made a goal that we wanted to make a final in the Kings of the Sevens. We didn't really expect it to come this quick. There was obviously good opportunity here with Selkirk and Accies having games elsewhere. As a club, we want to be taken seriously. So another goal is win respect. Because I think for a lot of the time we've been a bit of the whipping boys, and look, over the 3 tournaments we've picked up points, and we're working our way up that Kings of the Sevens table, and it's piquing interest, and it's making the boys work a wee bit harder. So look, I'm really chuffed with today. Final a wee bit different. It's hard, especially when you have 20 minutes rest. And the Peebles boys aren't used to playing 4 ties, so it makes a wee bit of a difference. But at the same time, I'm really chuffed with how we stuck in today. They're a really good bunch of lads. They've been really welcoming to me, and they're really buying into what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach them my way of rugby and my way of thinking about the game, and they don't question anything, which is maybe a problem in itself. But I'm really chuffed with how things are going at the moment.
Well, they're a good bunch of lads, as you say, and they're obviously working for you.
Absolutely, and they're making themselves available. And in the past, that's not happened. They've had to scrape together teams, and we want to be taken seriously, and we want to take the Kings of the Sevens seriously, and anything that we can win, we want to have a go at winning, even if it's out of our reach.
Well, it's the first time we've had 3 pre-season Kings of the Sevens, so that stops now. There's a great big gap until April, but you'll be kind of chomping at the bit, waiting to have another go for the second part.
Absolutely, but we've got a big 15 season to come, and the club are really aspirational on and off the field. We've got Cartha on the 3rd of September, and we've got Kelso in the Border League. We want to push boundaries with how we're going to try and play, and that requires a bit of a change of mindset for these boys. But again, like I said earlier, they're buying into it. They're a really, really good bunch of boys, and they're coming in big numbers to training and working hard. So I'm really chuffed with today and our past 3 tournaments, but also how we're prepping for the 15th season.
Whilst you have to talk about the Border League, which is coming up very, very shortly against Kelso, and you'll be fancying your chances.
It's hard to tell. We've not had an opportunity to stress test it. I don't think it's rained in Peebles for about 2 years, so we've been reluctant to do any full contact. Kelso will be an opportunity for us to stress test where we are and get a good marker. But again, Peebles fought really, really hard to get into the Border League, and we don't want to take that for granted. Again, it's something that we could potentially win. Maybe not this year or the year after, but we want to give it our full noise if we can.
And how important is the Border League to the club?
I'm not really sure, if I'm honest. It's important to me. It's important that we win respect through that and through how we play and how we approach it. I've been at a couple of different clubs, and those places in different areas of the country would kill for something like the Border League. We just need to make it fit in a little bit better.
Well, we certainly wish you all the best.
Thank
You've got some, a little bit of silverware, some silver medals to go back to the Gites with you, and obviously kicking off the season next week. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Well, I get the impression he's really enjoying himself at Peebles, and he's also involved with the Academy at Melrose, so he's a busy boy. And Sam Matthews will be watching that one closely for us on our live show tomorrow between 2 and 5 at our website at bordersrugby.net. And the show will also be broadcast on both TD1 Radio in Gala and TD9 Radio in Hawick. Well, we were due to have 2 local teams in the National Shield, which starts tomorrow, but unfortunately both have been called off. Langham can't get a team together for their trip to Forrester, and Dunbar can't fulfil their game at Hawick Lindeen. So we've given Hugh Brown and Gary Alexander the day off tomorrow. Duns, of course, are in the competition. They have a bye into round 2, though, so they'll be facing the winner of Ross High against Portobello. Well, this week, the big news, I suppose, locally, Craig Jackson parted company with Gala. He was backs coach, of course, but his recovery from injury has been going well, and so well, in fact, that he said he wants to resume his playing career at a higher level, which would be Super 6. Now, he wanted to do both, but Gala said that wouldn't work for them, so he has left the club. Now, we spoke to head coach Stuart Johnson, but first let's hear from Craig himself.
Obviously, I came over to help Fraser Thompson out, who's done a sterling job over there to kind of get the club back to where they want to be going in performance-wise. And I thoroughly enjoyed working with Fraser and getting to know some of the boys, which was an interesting time in itself. But they were great with me, and they're a great bunch of boys, and they've got real potential. They've got some really good individuals and some young aspiration rugby players, aspiring rugby players. So they're a really good group to work with. Unfortunately, the club and I haven't kind of seen eye to eye over the last couple of weeks as I was trying to progress on my rugby journey, which I was honest with from the start, and they've chosen to kind of let me go as such, as I can't fully commit. As if the opportunity arised again to play Super 6, I would have to take that, and they as a group couldn't see that as a club, so I've had to step away from myself, really, which is unfortunate because I really did enjoy my time at Gala, and they've got a really good group of boys that I enjoyed working with.
On behalf of the club and myself personally, I just want to thank Jacko for the last 10 months. The time and effort he's put into the club and instilling a culture that'll put us in a great place for this season. Obviously, he's worked brilliantly himself to get himself back fit, and has got obviously aspirations to play a high level of rugby, and I wish him all the best for that.
Stuart Johnson and Craig Jackson, and Craig sounding very disappointed that he won't be working at the club anymore. What about your own thoughts on that, Dale?
I'm kind of late to the party in terms of following it. I did see the news breaking, and I've not really been able to speak to many people about it. So based off of the two clips, you've got to say Craig's very disappointed that he's not able to continue at Gala. And I think then if you look at the other side, what Jono's saying is he's put them in a good place with their culture for the season ahead, and you almost think that you could have found a place for him if he's been such a positive contribution to the club, because over the last 12 months, Gala have changed as a club. They've went in the kind of the one club direction. Fraser Thompson has done a terrific job at Netherdale to get them competing, narrowly missing out on promotion from Nat 1. And Craig Jackson was there towards the end of that. So looking at it and listening to it from those two sides, I would think that there could have been a bit of movement. So you do wonder if there's a little bit of, if the ambition from Craig Jackson is perhaps a little bit too high in terms of where he wants to play and get back to playing, because he is a very good rugby player. Let's not forget that. But obviously he's had a positive contribution. It's just that it's, for both sides, they're obviously disappointed that Gala can't benefit off of Craig Jackson's influence and his expertise, and he can't positively put back because he's obviously enjoyed his time there.
So a couple of points to end with tonight. The SIU AGM took place recently, and the clubs voted to have 10-team leagues from season 2022-23. But rather than 6 clubs from National 3 dropping into regional rugby, they've decided to add another division and promote 4 from the regional rugby setup into national rugby. Now that means we'll have 50 clubs travelling all over the country to play their rugby at a time when everyone's talking about cutting travel costs and attracting more players who don't want to be late home after a game of rugby, and there's a lot of those about. So, how do you think that's going to pan out? I like the idea of 10-team leagues. I always have done, because hopefully it will mean seasons won't drag on till April and May. But I also see travel becoming a bit of a problem and getting enough people who want to travel.
The more that rugby changes and evolves, I think sometimes it's difficult to see how sustainable clubs are going to be. And we're in a very small region, and already there's 1 or 2 clubs had difficulties. St Boswell's are now no longer a rugby club, essentially. Hoyt Quinns had to take a season out because they couldn't get players, and there's almost going to be that natural cycle of clubs maybe going out of business. I agree with the 10-team leagues. I don't agree with the way it's going to be handled. I think that you kind of have to ask, what is the benefit of that, doing it that way? I played rugby from, I went to senior rugby when I was 17, had to retire when I was 23, and I think I played 4 different league structures. And you've got to say, like, why change? What is the benefit of this? If it's cutting games so they can fit more in the calendar in terms of representative games and progression pathways, then that's fine. But it almost just seems like it's changing for changing's sake sometimes. And the 10-team leagues is brilliant because it does cut down the amount of rugby. Like, life is busy now. People are professionals, and they've got their jobs and their families to look out for. It's not as much as what it was in the old days when men played rugby and they went and drank beer and then they came home and that was about it. Life and social life has completely changed. So I think in terms of less games is good, but I think the benefits you kind of do have to balance it up. And for people and regular supporters of rugby in Scotland to follow the ramifications for where their club is going to be come the end of the season, it's going to be, mind-numbing to think where you're going to be if you finish 7th. That's not a bad season, but no, we've been relegated. So, it's difficult to keep up with, but, it might come out in the wash. 10-team leagues might be the best thing for the next 15 years, but we're just going to have to see. It's just a clunky way to go about it.
I mean, certainly the 6 clubs who would have been relegated from National 3, I mean, that's half would have been out to regional rugby, and obviously that wasn't something which went down particularly well with the National 3 clubs, which you could understand. As it turns out, we don't have any involvement in National 3 as far as clubs, because Berwick got promoted. So in a way, it doesn't really affect us, but I mean, it certainly would have affected some of the other teams. It's nice that 4 regional clubs who are ambitious and want to do national rugby now have the opportunity. Time will tell whether it's sustainable.
Yeah, and these regional clubs do grow. Look at Mar, look at Howe of Fife over the last few years. These regional clubs come from nowhere, and they get that that rugby culture and within their town and within their community, and they start to grow. So there is clubs that want to play national rugby, but equally there's probably clubs that want to play regional rugby. I just think if you look back at the National 1 League last year, there was a time when you could have picked 7 teams that could have got promoted. Now, what if you were to say you're going to just narrowly miss out on promotion, but you're getting relegated? It will take time for the leagues then to settle. So you're talking maybe 5 years, and you might go, yeah, this is actually a true representation of where my club is now. I look at Peebles. You would kind of say, if they were unfortunate enough to fall down the pecking order, it is a tougher journey. And Ian Chisholm's already said that the guys have bought into it. They're embracing it. They're getting there in numbers and supporting it. That is the thing that would take the wind out of a club's sails. So it's going to be really difficult to see where it's going to go or who it's going to affect. Fingers crossed, no Borders teams end up on the wrong side of it, and Peebles are perhaps one of the teams up towards the top that benefits. But it's a difficult thing to try and get your head round, as to you could have a really good season, finish mid-table, and essentially drop a league. If it's, on paper you're dropping a league because you might go down a number, you're still in the same level in terms of the pecking order of club rugby. But it's just a difficult one to get your head round, and I think it will take a bit of time to settle, and you would hope that Scottish Rugby don't then revisit this in a few years' time and say it's not working. We have got it wrong, and collectively the clubs have got it wrong, because financially the clubs must think that's not going to be that bad for them, because otherwise they would have been up in arms saying that it's not going to be sustainable. So there's a lot of questions still to be answered, and sometimes you just need to roll with the punches, roll with change, and see where it takes you.
And we've had change, of course, with the K7s. The first time ever we've had 3 tournaments pre-season. How do you think it's worked? Because obviously from a Jed point of view, it hasn't. We've seen Hoyk put in Rory Bannerman and Greg McLeod to make up the numbers, which, I mean, good on them, but it shows how thin that things are being spread.
Yeah, I think there's still Zimmer frame marks on the pitch from the latter two, but it just highlights. I think it highlights an appetite of rugby. I think we are doing something wrong, and I've been an advocate for you're developing people and you're developing players, and sometimes in the Borders we do get a bit greedy to keep our players at our club, where sometimes it's better to let them flourish and leave. That can sometimes scun our players. So we have fought and wrestled and tried to rip our way into the calendar for Kings of the Sevens for as long as I can remember. And as long as I've played in it, as long as I've commentated on it, we've always tried to find what fits. It might be that this 10-team league is what makes the Kings of the Sevens fit, because we might be able to get that, continuous tournament. I think you need week after week after week of sevens. It might not be 10 tournaments, it might be 8, but I think you do need that continual sevens to get the fitness in, to get the performance and the continuity and the best teams there. So you see the problems with it. One problem, I'm not being derogatory of Peebles, but one problem is Peebles got to a final because other teams are committed on other things, and it is absolutely brilliant to see them there. I was at a wedding and I was talking about people's getting to a Kings of the Sevens final, and people didn't know what I was on about, but I was happy. So, it does show these things. Teams are concentrating on 15s, and the 10-team league might be something that actually, settles Kings of the Sevens for us in the Borders.
OK, well, that's just about it for today. My thanks, of course, to Dale Clancy for gracing us with his presence. Do join us live for Borders Rugby Special tomorrow at 2 o'clock for 3 hours of live rugby, and we'll be back next Friday for our Friday rugby preview. But for now, from me, Stuart Cameron, bye for now.